Why do you wake up with a knot in your stomach about the future? Why does it feel like money is a game of luck, where the rules are constantly changing against you? You work hard, you sacrifice, yet you remain stagnant. Why? This is not merely your personal struggle. This is the silent plague of modern men, the erosion of certainty itself. Financial anxiety has become the background noise of existence, the unnamed terror that follows you from your morning coffee to your restless midnight thoughts. You look at your bank account and feel the walls closing in. You scan the news and see economic chaos. You calculate your path forward and the numbers refuse to add up. And in this state of perpetual unease, you begin to believe a terrible lie, that wealth is reserved for the lucky, the connected, the chosen few who were born with advantages you will never possess. Yet into this darkness comes a declaration so bold, so uncompromising, that it shatters every excuse you have ever made. Wallace Wattles, a man who rose from abject poverty to prosperity through rigorous application of principle, declared that getting rich is not a matter of environment, talent, or saving pennies. It is an exact science, like algebra or arithmetic. If you follow the laws, the result is not probable, it is mathematically certain. Consider the audacity of this claim. Wattles did not say that wealth is likely if you work hard. He did not say it is possible if circumstances align. He said it is certain as 2 + 2 = 4, as inevitable as water flowing downhill. This is not motivational rhetoric designed to make you feel better about your situation. This is a mechanical assertion about the structure of reality itself. There are laws governing the acquisition of wealth, and these laws operate with the same reliability as the laws governing gravity or thermodynamics. But if this is true, why are you not rich? If such laws exist with mathematical precision, why do so many intelligent, hard-working individuals remain trapped in financial mediocrity? The answer is devastatingly simple. They do not know the laws, or they know them incompletely. Most people have encountered fragments of Wattles' teaching, the power of positive thinking, the importance of visualization, the necessity of gratitude. These are true principles, but they are incomplete. They are like knowing that a bridge exists without understanding the engineering that makes it stand. You have been given the destination without the map, the promise without the mechanism. And so you think positive thoughts while your bank account shrinks. You visualize abundance while drowning in bills. You practice gratitude while the creditors call. Something is missing. There is a bridge between the thought in your mind and the gold in your hand, and that bridge has precise architecture. Today we reveal the missing secret, the element that transforms Wattles' science of getting rich from philosophy into physics. It is called the science of constant increase, and it is the mechanical link that most students of this work never grasp. This is not about working harder. You have already tried that and exhausted yourself. This is not about wanting more intensely. Your desire already burns with sufficient heat. This is about understanding the exact method by which thought becomes thing, by which mental impression becomes material manifestation. Wattles discovered that there is a specific operational plane on which wealth is created with certainty, and a different plane on which even heroic effort produces only struggle and scarcity. Most men spend their entire lives on the wrong plane, wondering why their labor bears no fruit. The secret is this: you must shift from the competitive plane to the creative plane, and you must make yourself a center of increase for everyone you encounter. These are not metaphors. These are technical terms describing actual mechanisms of wealth generation. On the competitive plane, you are fighting for scraps of a limited pie, and your gain must come at another's loss. On the creative plane, you are baking new pies from the formless substance of the universe, and your enrichment enriches all who touch your life. The former produces anxiety because it is war. The latter produces certainty because it is aligned with the fundamental drive of existence itself, the drive toward more life, more expression, more abundance. This is the algorithm that Wattles decoded. This is the formula that turns poverty into prosperity with scientific reliability. And here is what makes this knowledge so urgently valuable. It works regardless of your starting point. It does not matter if you are drowning in debt or starting with nothing. It does not matter if you lack education, connections, or capital. The laws of wealth creation operate on the level of thought and action, not on the level of circumstance. Your current situation is merely the physical echo of your past mental patterns. When you change the pattern, the echo must change. This is not hope. This is mechanics. By the end of this revelation, you will understand precisely how to impress your financial vision upon the thinking substance of the universe, how to act in the certain way that guarantees results, and how to become an advancing personality that draws abundance like a magnet draws iron. The anxiety ends today. The science begins now. There is a thinking stuff from which all things are made. This is the foundation upon which everything else rests. And if you do not grasp this principle with absolute clarity, the entire structure of financial certainty will remain forever beyond your reach. Wallace Wattles begins with what seems like metaphysics, but is actually the most practical physics imaginable. He tells you that the universe is not dead matter, governed by random forces. It is living substance that responds to thought. This substance permeates the interspaces of the universe. It fills the apparent emptiness between stars, between atoms, between your body and the object of your desire. And this substance has one extraordinary property. When you impress a thought upon it, it must take form. Not might take form. Not could take form if you are lucky. Must take form with the same inevitability that clay takes the shape of the mold pressed into it. Consider what this means for your financial life. Every condition you currently experience, your bank balance, your debts, your income, your opportunities, is the physical manifestation of thoughts that were impressed upon this formless substance in the past. Your poverty is not punishment. It is not evidence of your unworthiness. It is simply the materialized echo of thought patterns characterized by limitation, competition, and fear. You have been thinking poverty, and the universe, operating with perfect mechanical precision, has delivered poverty. This is not your fault in a moral sense, but it is your responsibility in a causal sense. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are the sculptor who has been unconsciously shaping formless substance with the chisel of your habitual thoughts, and you have carved poverty into your experience because you did not know you were sculpting. But here is the revelation that changes everything. If thought creates, then new thought creates anew. The substance that hardened into your current financial condition is still responsive, still malleable, still awaiting your impression. You are not trapped by the past. The formless substance does not care what you created yesterday. It only responds to what you are impressing upon it now, in this moment, with the full power of your concentrated intention. This is why Wattles can speak of mathematical certainty. If you control your thoughts, you control the cause. If you control the cause, you control the effect. The chain of causation is unbreakable. Impress the thought of wealth upon the formless substance with sufficient clarity and faith, and that substance must arrange itself into the physical forms that constitute wealth, opportunities, resources, people, ideas, money itself. Yet immediately, doubt arises. You look around and see complexity, chaos, randomness. How can thought alone penetrate the vast machinery of the economic world? How can your internal mental image compete with the external forces of markets, governments, and powerful institutions? This doubt is the primary obstacle between you and wealth. You underestimate the power of thought because you have been trained to worship the apparent solidity of the physical world. But the physical world is not solid. Modern physics confirms what ancient wisdom always knew. Matter is condensed energy, energy is vibration, and vibration responds to consciousness. The desk beneath your hand feels solid, but it is mostly empty space, a shimmering field of probability held in temporary form by the organizing principle of mind. When you truly grasp that physical reality is downstream from mental reality, your entire relationship with money transforms. The formless substance is not some distant cosmic entity that you must petition like a beggar praying to an indifferent god. It is the very fabric of existence, and it is closer to you than your breath. It fills your body, your room, the space between you and your goals. It is already here, already responsive, already waiting for your command, but it does not respond to wishful thinking. It does not respond to desperate begging or anxious grasping. It responds to the sustained, unwavering impression of definite thought backed by absolute faith. This is why most people fail. They impress their desire upon the substance for a few moments, then immediately cancel that impression by entertaining doubts, observing lack, or accepting the verdict of appearances. They are like a sculptor who makes one stroke with the chisel, then smooths it over and starts again in a different spot. No form can emerge from such scattered effort. To work with the formless substance is to operate as an artist with infinite material. You do not need to worry about scarcity because the substance is limitless. You do not need to compete for resources because there is enough substance to manifest everything every person could ever desire simultaneously. The poverty you see around you is not evidence of scarce substance. It is evidence of scarce thinking. Most men think small, think lack, think limitation, and the substance faithfully delivers small, lacking, limited results. But you are now learning to think differently. You are learning to hold in your mind a clear, definite image of the wealth you desire, to feel it as already real, to impress it upon the formless substance with the authority of one who understands the law. When you do this consistently, when you refuse to be moved by appearances, when you think only from the standpoint of your desired reality, the substance has no choice but to rearrange itself into the physical equivalent of your mental image. This is not magic, though it may seem magical to those who have never understood the mechanics. This is cause and effect, operating at the most fundamental level. You plant a seed in the ground and a tree grows. This does not surprise you because you understand botanical law. You impress a thought on the formless substance and wealth appears. This should not surprise you either once you understand mental law. The universe is a thought-responsive mechanism, and you are the thinker authorized to operate the controls. Your financial destiny is not written in the stars. It is not determined by your genes, your circumstances, or your past failures. It is being written right now in this moment by the quality and direction of your thought. The substance is waiting. The power is yours. The only question is, what will you impress upon the infinite canvas of possibility? The reason you are not rich is that you look at your bank account and you let it dictate your thoughts. This is the great reversal, the fundamental error that keeps brilliant minds trapped in mediocrity. You wake up, you check your balance, you see a number that disappoints you, and immediately your thinking adjusts itself to match that number. You begin to think poor thoughts, thoughts of limitation, of what you cannot afford, of opportunities you must pass by, of dreams you must postpone. And in thinking these thoughts, you impress poverty upon the formless substance, which faithfully produces more poverty. You have created a closed loop of lack, where your circumstances create your thoughts, and your thoughts recreate your circumstances. This is why most financial advice fails. It tells you to budget, to save, to cut expenses, all of which keeps your attention fixed on the very condition you wish to escape. Wallace Wattles demands something far more difficult and far more powerful. He demands that you think riches when you are surrounded by poverty. This is not delusional positive thinking. This is the deliberate application of mental law. The formless substance does not respond to your current conditions. It responds to your current thinking. If you wait until you are rich to think rich thoughts, you will wait forever. The thoughts must come first. The physical manifestation must follow. This is the unbreakable sequence of causation. But to maintain rich thoughts while your senses report poverty requires a kind of inner strength that most men never develop. It requires the power to hold your vision steady against the evidence of appearances. It requires the discipline to reject the testimony of your eyes in favor of the testimony of principle. Consider what this means in practical terms. You receive a bill you cannot pay. The competitive thinker looks at this bill and feels fear, inadequacy, anger. His thoughts spiral downward into anxiety and limitation. But the man who understands Wattles' science looks at the same bill and refuses to let it dictate his mental state. He acknowledges the bill as a current fact, but he does not accept it as a permanent condition. Instead, he returns his mind immediately to his vision of wealth, to his clear mental image of abundant resources flowing to him. He impresses upon the formless substance not the reality of the unpaid bill, but the reality of infinite supply. And because the substance responds to his thinking rather than to his circumstances, it begins to arrange opportunities, ideas, and resources that will not only pay the bill, but establish a foundation for lasting prosperity. This is the power Wattles speaks of, the power to stand unmoved by appearances, to think from cause rather than effect, to operate as a conscious creator rather than a reactive victim. But acquiring this power is the work of a lifetime condensed into a moment of decision. You must choose right now whether you will continue to let circumstances dictate your thoughts, or whether you will use your thoughts to dictate circumstances. There is no middle ground. Either you are impressed upon by the world, or you impress yourself upon the world. Either you react to lack or you create abundance. The formless substance is perfectly neutral. It will produce poverty for the poverty thinker and wealth for the wealth thinker with equal mechanical precision. It does not judge. It does not care about fairness. It simply responds to the habitual quality of your mental impressions. And here is where most people stumble. They try this for a day or a week, see no immediate physical change, and conclude the principle does not work. But the formless substance operates at a deeper level than instant gratification. When you begin to think wealth consistently, when you refuse to acknowledge poverty as a permanent condition, you set in motion invisible causes that must produce visible effects. But there is a gestation period. The seed does not become a tree overnight. The thought does not become a thing instantly. There is a lag time between impression and manifestation, and during this lag time, your faith is tested. This is why Wattles insists on unwavering faith. Doubt is not a harmless emotion. It is a counter-impression that cancels your creative work. Every time you doubt, every time you acknowledge lack as real, you smooth over the impression you have been making and must start again from zero. To think riches when surrounded by poverty is to become a mastermind. This is not a title of honor. It is a description of function. A mastermind is one who has mastered the relationship between thought and reality, who understands that thought is cause and reality is effect, who refuses to be hypnotized by appearances. Such a person looks at poverty and sees only the raw material for transformation. They look at an empty bank account and see a clean slate upon which to impress a new design. They encounter obstacles and perceive opportunities for creative problem-solving that will strengthen their mental muscles. They have conquered fate because they understand that fate is simply the accumulated momentum of past thinking, and momentum can be redirected by present thinking applied with sufficient force and consistency. You have been operating as a slave to circumstances, allowing every external event to dictate your internal state. This must end. Your mind is not a mirror meant to reflect conditions. It is a projector meant to create conditions. When you look at your bank account from this day forward, you will see it not as a judgment on your worth, but as temporary feedback on your past thinking patterns. If the feedback is negative, you will not despair. You will simply adjust your thinking and continue impressing your vision of wealth upon the formless substance with renewed clarity and faith. And gradually, inevitably, mathematically, the physical world must conform to your mental world. This is not hope, this is law. He who acquires the power to think independently of appearances acquires the power to shape appearances. This is the science of getting rich, and it begins with the revolutionary act of thinking wealth while poverty still lingers at your door. Why do men work 12 hours a day and stay poor? This is the question that haunts every factory floor, every corporate office, every small business grinding toward bankruptcy despite heroic effort. You have seen these men. Perhaps you are one of them. They sacrifice sleep, health, relationships, everything of value, yet prosperity remains perpetually out of reach. The conventional explanation blames laziness, but these men are not lazy. It blames lack of intelligence, but many are brilliant. It blames bad luck, but luck cannot explain such a consistent pattern of failure. The true answer is far more devastating. These men are operating on the competitive plane. They are trying to wrestle money away from others. They are dealing with limited supply. And on the competitive plane, no amount of effort produces certainty. It produces only exhausting struggle that may or may not yield temporary gains. The competitive plane is the realm of scarcity thinking. It is the mental framework that assumes wealth is a fixed pie that must be divided, where your gain necessarily means another's loss, where success requires taking something from someone else. This is the philosophy of the employee who thinks his raise must come at the expense of the company's profits, the business owner who thinks winning customers means stealing them from competitors, the investor who thinks making money requires being smarter or faster than other market participants. And while some people do accumulate wealth through competition, they do so at tremendous cost, through stress, manipulation, exploitation, and constant vigilance against those who would take from them what they took from others. Even when competition succeeds financially, it fails existentially, leaving the successful competitor exhausted, paranoid, and spiritually bankrupt. But there is a deeper problem with the competitive plane that goes beyond its psychological toll. It cannot produce certainty. Competition is war, and in war, the outcome depends on factors beyond your control, the strength of your opponents, the conditions of the battlefield, the random chance that determines whether your strategy succeeds or fails. You may work brilliantly and still lose because someone else worked more brilliantly. You may sacrifice everything and still fail because the market shifted or a competitor undercut your price. On the competitive plane, your financial future is always hostage to forces you cannot control. This is why competitive effort produces anxiety rather than peace, why men who make money through competition cannot stop worrying about losing it, why the grind never ends. They are fighting against reality itself, against the fact that competition is inherently uncertain. Wallace Wattles understood this completely. He saw that the vast majority of human effort was being poured into competitive activity that could never produce the certainty that men craved. He saw employees competing for positions, businesses competing for customers, investors competing for returns, everyone exhausting themselves in a vast game of musical chairs where there would never be enough seats for everyone. And he recognized that this entire mode of operation was based on a false premise about the nature of wealth. Wealth is not a fixed quantity to be divided. It is not something that exists in finite supply, requiring you to take from another to have for yourself. Wealth is something that can be created ex nihilo from the formless substance that is the raw material of all manifest things. This insight changes everything. When you understand that wealth can be created rather than merely redistributed, you realize that competition is voluntary. You do not have to play that game. You do not have to fight for scraps of a limited pie. You can bake new pies. You can create value where none existed before. You can reach into the formless substance and bring forth resources, opportunities, and abundance that did not exist in physical form until you impressed your thought upon the universal medium. This is the creative plane, and it operates by entirely different laws than the competitive plane. On the creative plane, your success does not require another's failure. Your enrichment does not diminish anyone else. Your gain comes not from taking, but from making, not from conquering, but from creating. Yet the mind that has been trained in competition finds this almost impossible to accept. You have been conditioned since childhood to see life as a zero-sum game. In school, you competed for grades, for attention, for limited spots in prestigious programs. In your career, you competed for jobs, for promotions, for recognition. In the marketplace, you competed for customers, for market share, for the limited supply of money flowing through the economy. Every institution in society teaches you that success means beating others, that getting ahead requires leaving others behind. And so when Wattles tells you that you can create wealth without competing, your mind rejects it as naive fantasy. Your entire worldview is organized around scarcity and competition, and to abandon that worldview feels like stepping into an abyss. But what if the worldview you have been operating under is precisely what has kept you poor? What if your assumption of scarcity has been creating the very scarcity you assume? The formless substance is perfectly responsive to your beliefs. If you believe there is not enough, if you approach every transaction as a battle for limited resources, if you think in terms of winners and losers, then the substance will manifest a world of scarcity, competition, and struggle. But if you shift your belief to abundance, if you approach every transaction as an opportunity to create value, If you think in terms of expansion rather than division, then the substance will manifest a world of plenty. The world you experience is not objective reality. It is your belief system materialized, and as long as you remain on the competitive plane in your thinking, you will remain trapped in competitive struggle in your experience, working 12 hours a day and staying poor. Financial certainty only exists on the creative plane. Let this statement penetrate deeply. Certainty is impossible on the competitive plane because competition involves factors beyond your control, but certainty is guaranteed on the creative plane because creation operates by precise laws that respond only to your thought and action. This is the great bifurcation point in human financial experience. On one side is the vast majority who compete, struggle, and remain perpetually uncertain about their economic future. On the other side is the small minority who have discovered the creative plane, who create value from the formless substance, and who experience wealth as an inevitable result of applying known principles. The question you must answer today is, which side will you choose? To operate on the creative plane is to fundamentally reorient your relationship with wealth. You must stop trying to beat competitors and start creating value. You must stop looking at what already exists and asking how you can get your share, and start looking at what does not yet exist and asking how you can bring it into being. This is not merely a strategic shift, it is a metaphysical transformation. When you create, you are partnering with the formless substance itself, using the same power that created galaxies and life forms to create wealth in your personal experience. You are no longer a desperate contestant in a rigged game. You are a conscious co-creator with the infinite intelligence that governs the universe. This is not arrogance, this is recognizing your true nature and operating from your true power. But what does it mean practically to create rather than compete? It means that when you approach a business opportunity, you do not ask, how can I take customers from my competitors, but rather, what value can I create that does not currently exist in the marketplace? It means that when you go to work, you do not think, how can I do the minimum required to keep my job? But rather, what can I contribute today that will expand the capacity of this organization? It means that when you invest, you do not think, how can I outsmart other investors? But rather, what enterprises are creating genuine new value in the world? Every action taken from the creative mindset strengthens your connection to the formless substance and accelerates your wealth manifestation. Every action taken from the competitive mindset reinforces scarcity and struggle. And here Wattles reveals something that sounds almost too good to be true. When you create from the formless substance, you are not dividing a limited pie, you are baking infinite new pies. The formless substance is inexhaustible. There is no limit to how much wealth can be created, because there is no limit to the raw material from which wealth is formed. 10 people can create 10 fortunes without diminishing each other's supply, because they are each drawing from the infinite, not from a finite pool. This is why genuine creators do not fear competition. They understand that the universe can supply everyone simultaneously. They understand that abundance for one does not mean scarcity for another. They understand that the more value that is created in total, the more prosperity flows to all participants in the economic system. But notice the crucial qualifier. This only works when you are genuinely creating value, not merely rearranging existing value. If you are a middleman who simply extracts fees without adding anything, you are still on the competitive plane. If you are a manipulator who creates the illusion of value while delivering nothing of substance, you are still operating from scarcity. True creation means bringing into physical form something that serves human need, that enhances human life, that expands the total wealth of the world. When you do this, the universe rushes to support you. Resources appear. Opportunities open. The right people arrive at the right time. Money flows to you not because you have taken it from someone else, but because you have created new value that did not exist until you brought it forth. This is why Wattles insists that what you want for yourself, you must want for everyone. This is not sentimental morality, this is mechanical necessity. If you want wealth while secretly hoping others remain poor so you can have more of the limited supply, you are thinking from the competitive plane and will remain trapped in competitive struggle. But if you want wealth for yourself and simultaneously desire that everyone prosper, you are thinking from the creative plane, recognizing that abundance for all is not only possible, but is the natural state of a universe governed by a beneficent intelligence. Your prosperity and others' prosperity are not in conflict. They are mutually reinforcing, because every act of genuine value creation raises the tide for all boats. The shift from competition to creation is the shift from hell to heaven, from slavery to freedom, from anxiety to certainty. But it requires a complete rewiring of your mental operating system. You must train yourself to see opportunities for creation where you previously saw only arenas for competition. You must practice thinking in terms of expansion rather than division. You must consistently ask not, how can I get mine, or but what can I create? And you must do this even when every voice around you screams that you are being naive, that the real world is competitive, that nice guys finish last. Those voices are the voices of people trapped on the competitive plane, and they will remain trapped there until they die, unless they discover what you are discovering now. That there is another plane, a plane of mathematical certainty, where wealth is created by law rather than seized by force. When you operate on the creative plane, you are not dealing with limited supply. You are dealing with infinite supply. You are not fighting against opponents. You are collaborating with universal intelligence. You are not subject to the random forces of market competition. You are subject only to the reliable laws of thought and action that govern wealth creation. This is why certainty becomes possible. This is why anxiety dissolves. This is why 12 hours of creative effort produces abundance, while 12 hours of competitive effort produces exhaustion. You have found the algorithm. You have discovered the plane on which the science of getting rich operates. Now you must make the commitment to remain there, to never again descend into competitive thinking, to operate as a creator for the rest of your life. This is the missing secret. This is the bridge between poverty and prosperity. This is the mechanism by which thought becomes gold. Nature abhors stagnation. Every living thing must grow or die. A seed must become a tree. Life seeks more life. Your desire for money is simply life seeking a larger expression through you. This is the law of increase, and it is perhaps the most misunderstood yet most powerful principle in Wallace Wattles' entire system. Most people feel guilty about wanting wealth. They have been taught that desire for money is somehow unspiritual, that ambition is selfish, that contentment with little is virtuous. But Wattles demolishes this life-denying philosophy with a simple observation. The desire for increase is not personal greed. It is the fundamental drive of the universe itself. Everything that lives wants more life, more expression, more capacity, more experience. This is not a flaw to be overcome. This is the engine of evolution, the force that drives all progress, the sacred yes to existence itself. Consider a tree. Does the tree apologize for wanting to grow taller, to spread its branches wider, to produce more fruit? Does it feel guilty for seeking more sunlight, more nutrients, more space? Of course not. The tree's drive to increase is its nature. To deny this drive would be to deny its essence as a living thing. And you are no different. You are life in human form, and life within you seeks greater expression. When you desire more money, you are not being greedy. You are responding to the life force within you that wants more capacity to act, more power to create, more resources to manifest your potential. To suppress this desire is to commit violence against your own nature. It is to choose stagnation over growth, death over life, contraction over expansion. But here is what makes this principle so revolutionary for wealth creation. The law of increase is not merely personal, it is social. Life seeks more life not only in you but in everything around you. Every person you meet is also driven by this fundamental force. They too want to grow, to expand, to have more life. And here is the key that unlocks the door to unlimited wealth. If you can become a source of increase for others, if every person who interacts with you feels that they have gained more life from knowing you, then you become a magnet for abundance. The universe will funnel resources to you because you have made yourself a distribution center for the very thing that the universe is trying to accomplish. the increase of life everywhere. Think carefully about what this means. Most people approach transactions with the question, what can I get? But the person who understands the law of increase approaches every transaction with the question, what increase can I provide? They are not focused on extracting value. They are focused on creating value. They are not trying to minimize what they give and maximize what they receive. They are trying to ensure that everyone who touches them walks away with more than they had before. This is not charity. This is not sacrifice. This is the most sophisticated form of self-interest imaginable, because it aligns your personal enrichment with the fundamental drive of the universe. When you make yourself a conduit for increase, the universe has no choice but to increase you. You become a partner in the cosmic project of evolution itself. Wallace Wattles goes further. He says that the desire for riches is simply the infinite seeking expression through you. You are not separate from the universal intelligence that governs existence. You are an individualized center of that intelligence, a unique expression of the creative force that brought forth galaxies and orchestrated the unfathomable complexity of biological life. And just as that force seeks greater expression in the evolution of species, in the expansion of consciousness, in the increasing complexity of civilization, so too does it seek greater expression through your individual life. Your desire for wealth is that force knocking at the door of your awareness, asking to be let in, asking to flow through you in the form of greater capacity, greater impact, greater creation. But most people reject this force. They feel unworthy of it. They believe that wanting more is somehow wrong. They accept poverty as a kind of penance for being human, and in doing so, they dam up the flow of life that is trying to move through them. They become stagnant pools instead of flowing rivers. And what happens to stagnant water? It grows fetid, it breeds disease, it becomes toxic. This is the spiritual condition of those who deny the law of increase. They become bitter, resentful, life-denying. They project their own stagnation onto the world and call it realism. They criticize those who prosper and call it justice, but they are simply dying slowly, refusing the life that is trying to express through them. You must make a different choice. You must accept that your desire for increase is legitimate, natural, and sacred. You must recognize that wanting wealth is not opposed to spirituality. It is an expression of spirituality, an affirmation of your divine nature as a creator. You must embrace your ambition not as selfish grasping, but as cosmic participation, as alignment with the fundamental drive that moves all existence toward greater complexity, consciousness, and capacity. When you do this, when you stop apologizing for wanting more and instead celebrate it as life celebrating itself through you, something shifts in your relationship with money. You are no longer a beggar hoping for scraps. You are a channel through which universal abundance flows into the world. And this changes everything about how you operate. You stop trying to minimize your expenses and start trying to maximize your value creation. You stop looking for the cheapest option and start looking for the option that provides the most increase. You stop hoarding your resources in fear and start deploying them in service of greater expansion. You become generous not out of duty, but out of strategy, recognizing that every act of increasing another person's life creates an obligation in the universe to increase yours. This is not karma in some vague spiritual sense. This is mechanical cause and effect. You have made yourself a conduit for the law of increase. The universe must respond by increasing you. There is no other possible outcome. This is certainty. This is science. This is the mechanism by which your desire for wealth becomes its own fulfillment. You must become an advancing personality. This is not a suggestion for moral improvement. This is a technical requirement for wealth creation. An advancing personality is someone who communicates growth to everyone they encounter, who leaves every person feeling that they have received increase from the interaction, who radiates the promise of more life to all who come within their sphere of influence. When you become this kind of person, you do not have to chase money. Money chases you. Opportunities seek you out. The right people appear in your path. Resources flow to you effortlessly because you have made yourself valuable in the deepest possible sense. You have become a source of that which everyone desires most: increase. Consider what happens in a typical business transaction. A customer buys a product and receives value equal to the price paid. This is fair exchange, but it creates no magnetic attraction for future abundance. Now consider what happens when you operate as an advancing personality. The customer buys your product and receives value far in excess of the price paid. They walk away feeling that they got a bargain, that they were treated with respect, that the interaction itself enhanced their life beyond the mere utility of the product. What is the result? They return, they tell others, they become ambassadors for your business. And more importantly, the universe registers that you have created increase, and it moves to increase you in return. You have set in motion a cause that must produce an effect. But this principle extends far beyond formal business transactions. Every interaction you have with another human being is an opportunity to create increase. The way you speak to the barista making your coffee, the way you treat the clerk at the store, the way you respond to your spouse, the way you engage with your colleagues. Every single interaction is either increasing or decreasing the life of the other person. And the universe is keeping a perfect accounting. If you move through life taking from others' energy, diminishing their dignity, treating people as obstacles or instruments, you are creating a field of decrease around yourself. And the law of increase, which governs all prosperity, must respond by decreasing you. You cannot receive increase while you are a source of decrease. The laws do not work that way. Wallace Wattles tells you that if you give more in use value than you take in cash value, the universe is obligated to refill you with abundance. Read that again slowly, because it contains the entire secret of effortless prosperity. You are not trying to extract maximum profit from every transaction. You are trying to create maximum value in every transaction. You are not focused on getting paid what you think you deserve. You are focused on ensuring that others receive more than they expect. This seems counterintuitive to the competitive mind, which immediately objects, "But if I give more than I charge, won't I go broke?" The answer is no, because you are not operating in a closed system. You are not merely exchanging value that already exists. You are creating value from the formless substance, and the more value you create for others, the more the substance must create for you. Think of yourself as a valve through which prosperity flows into the world. If the valve is constricted, if you are stingy, if you are fearful, if you are trying to minimize what you give, then only a trickle can flow through you, and only a trickle can flow to you. But if you open the valve wide, if you are generous, if you are abundant, if you are constantly seeking ways to provide more value than you receive payment for, then a flood can flow through you, and a flood must flow to you. The amount that flows through you determines the amount that flows to you. You cannot increase the latter without increasing the former. This is why the wealthy become wealthier, while the poor remain poor. The wealthy have learned to be conduits for large amounts of value. The poor are constricted valves, fearfully protecting what little they have. But becoming an advancing personality is not about grand gestures or heroic sacrifices. It is about a fundamental orientation of consciousness. It is about waking up each morning with the question, how can I increase the life of everyone I encounter today? It is about looking for opportunities to provide value beyond what is required. It is about treating every person as precious, as worthy of your best effort, as deserving of increase. When you live this way, when you make it your mission to advance everyone you touch, something extraordinary happens in your psychology. Your own scarcity disappears. You cannot feel poor when you are constantly giving richly. You cannot feel limited when you are constantly creating increase. The very act of advancing others advances you. And people feel this. They may not be able to articulate it, but they sense when they are in the presence of an advancing personality. They feel expanded, elevated, energized. They want to be around you. They want to do business with you. They want to help you succeed because your success feels like their success. This is not manipulation. This is not some technique for winning friends and influencing people. This is the natural result of aligning yourself with the law of increase. When you genuinely care about advancing others, when you make their increase your purpose, you become irresistibly attractive. Not because you are trying to be attractive, but because you have become a source of the thing that all life craves. More life, more growth, more expression, more possibility. The practical application is simple but demanding. Starting today, evaluate every action you take through the lens of increase. Am I creating increase with this action? Am I adding value or extracting value? Am I leaving people better than I found them? Am I giving more than I am taking? If the answer is no, stop, redirect, find the way to create increase. And do this not out of moral obligation, but out of scientific understanding. You are not being nice. You are operating a wealth generation mechanism. You are applying a law as reliable as gravity. You give increase, you become increase, you receive increase. The chain is unbreakable. The result is certain. This is how you transform from someone who works hard and stays poor into someone who creates value and becomes wealthy. This is the missing link between good intentions and material results. This is the law of increase applied. You cannot just think, but you must not overwork either. Here Wallace Wattles addresses the two great errors that trap people in poverty despite their best efforts. The first error is the metaphysical delusion of those who believe that thought alone, without action, will manifest wealth. These people sit in meditation, visualizing bank accounts while their bills pile up, waiting for the universe to deliver money without any effort on their part. The second error is the brute force fallacy of those who believe that relentless action without proper thought will eventually produce prosperity. These people exhaust themselves in 12-hour workdays, sacrificing health and relationships, wondering why wealth continues to elude them despite their heroic effort. Both groups are wrong because they have misunderstood the relationship between thought and action in the science of getting rich. Thought brings the riches to you. Action receives them. These two processes are not interchangeable, and neither alone is sufficient. Thought impresses your desire upon the formless substance, setting in motion the invisible causes that must produce visible wealth. But thought alone does not place money in your hand. For that you need action, but not just any action. You need efficient action, action perfectly aligned with your thought, action performed in the certain way. The formless substance responds to your thinking by orchestrating opportunities, by moving the right people into your path, by arranging circumstances that make your wealth possible. But you must physically move to meet these opportunities. You must perform the acts that allow the wealth to flow into your possession. Thought without action is paralysis. Action without thought is chaos. But thought and action properly united create the unstoppable momentum that produces mathematical certainty of result. But notice what Wattles says. You must not overwork. This is radical counsel in a culture that worships busyness, that equates long hours with virtue, that treats exhaustion as a badge of honor. Yet Wattles warns against doing many things in a day. Why? Because overwork is the signature of the competitive plane. It is evidence that you are trying to force results through sheer effort, rather than allowing them to emerge from proper application of law. When you are operating on the creative plane, when your thought is correctly impressing the formless substance, when your actions are efficient and aligned, you do not need to work yourself to death. The universe does most of the work. Your job is simply to perform the specific acts that are necessary to receive the wealth that is already flowing toward you. Think of it this way. A farmer who plants seeds and then frantically digs them up every day to check their progress will have no harvest. The growth happens underground, invisibly according to natural law. The farmer's job is not to force the seed to grow, but to provide the conditions that allow growth to occur, and then to harvest when the time is right. Similarly, when you impress your desire for wealth upon the formless substance, a process begins that you cannot see and cannot control directly. Your job is not to anxiously micromanage this process, but to maintain your vision, to keep your thought clear and steady, and to perform each action that presents itself as obviously necessary. The person who understands this works less and achieves more, because they are working with the laws rather than against them. This is why Wattles emphasizes doing all that can be done today, but only what can be done today. There is a perfect amount of action for each day, enough to move you forward, not so much that you scatter your energy. The competitive mind wants to do everything at once, to attack on all fronts simultaneously, to overwhelm obstacles with sheer force. But the creative mind understands rhythm, timing, and economy of effort. It understands that there is a proper sequence to wealth manifestation, that certain things must happen before other things can happen, that trying to force the sequence only creates resistance and delay. When you do each day all that can be done that day, no more, no less, you maintain perfect alignment with the invisible processes that are arranging your wealth. But what determines which actions are efficient? This is the crucial question. An efficient action is not simply a productive action. It is an action performed in a specific way, with a specific quality of consciousness behind it. Wattles says you must do every act in an efficient way, which means performing it with the full power of your faith and purpose behind it. This is the bridge between the mental and the physical, between thought and manifestation. When you act with faith, with absolute conviction that the formless substance is responding to your vision, and with purpose, with clear intention about the wealth you are creating, then every act becomes a success, regardless of its immediate visible result. You are not just completing tasks, you are performing ceremonial acts that seal your partnership with the creative force of the universe. Consider the difference. A person on the competitive plane sends out 100 resumes, desperately hoping one will land a job. Each resume is an act of fear, an act of lack, an act that says, "I need someone to save me." These acts may produce a job, but they will not produce wealth, because they are not acts of creation. They are acts of competition, of taking, of begging for a share of limited resources. But a person on the creative plane sends out one communication to one carefully chosen opportunity, and they send it with absolute faith that if this is the right opportunity, it will materialize, and if it is not, a better one will appear. This single act is an act of creation, of offering value, of confident partnership with the universe. Which person do you think will ultimately prosper? The efficient way means that every act you perform carries the quality of your vision. You do not simply go through the motions. You do not act from habit, from duty, from fear of consequences if you don't act. You act from vision, from faith, from purposeful alignment with the wealth you are creating. A person who works 8 hours in the efficient way accomplishes more than a person who works 16 hours in the habitual way, because the efficient worker is synchronized with the creative power of the universe, while the habitual worker is merely rearranging matter through physical force. One is creating with the universe, the other is fighting against entropy. The results are incomparable. This is why you cannot just think, but you also must not overwork. You need both thought and action, but both must be of a specific quality. Your thought must be steady, clear, and full of faith. Your action must be purposeful, efficient, and aligned with your vision. When these two elements are properly united, when you think wealth from the creative plane and act in the efficient way, you become an irresistible force. The universe has no choice but to produce the physical equivalent of your mental image. You are operating the machinery of creation correctly. The result is not a matter of hope, it is a matter of law. This is the bridge between thought and gold. If every act is a failure, you will be poor. If every act is a success, you must be rich. A successful act is one performed with the full power of your faith and purpose behind it. This definition of success is so radical, so completely different from conventional understanding, that most people miss its profound implications. In ordinary thinking, a successful act is one that produces the desired immediate result. You make a sale, that's success. You get rejected, that's failure. But Wattles is telling you something entirely different. The success or failure of an act is not determined by its immediate visible outcome, but by the quality of consciousness with which you performed it. An act performed with faith and purpose is successful even if the immediate result is disappointing, because it has set causes in motion that must eventually produce wealth. An act performed without faith and purpose is a failure even if it produces an immediate gain, because it has not aligned you with the creative forces that produce lasting prosperity. Think carefully about what this means for how you evaluate your daily actions. Most people live on an emotional roller coaster, celebrating when things go well and despairing when things go poorly, all based on immediate feedback from the external world. But this is living as an effect rather than as a cause. You are letting circumstances dictate your internal state, which means you have surrendered your power. The person who understands Wattles's definition of success maintains steady consciousness regardless of appearances. They perform each act with faith and purpose, knowing that they have done what was required, and they refuse to be shaken by the immediate results. They understand that there is a lag time between cause and effect, and they trust the law to produce the effect in its proper time. This is the essence of the efficient way. You are not performing acts in order to control outcomes. You cannot control outcomes directly. They are subject to laws and forces beyond your immediate control. But you can control the quality of consciousness with which you perform your acts, and by controlling this you control the causes, which must eventually produce the outcomes. Every act performed with faith and purpose is successful because it strengthens your alignment with the formless substance. It deepens your conviction in the science. It builds momentum toward the inevitable manifestation of your vision. The universe is registering these acts, is responding to the consciousness behind them, is orchestrating the circumstances that will allow your wealth to materialize. But the opposite is also true. Every act performed without faith and purpose is a failure because it reinforces doubt. It strengthens the pattern of poverty thinking. It misaligns you with the creative forces. If you go through your day performing acts mechanically, out of habit or obligation, with no connection to your vision of wealth, with no conscious impression of purpose upon each act, then you are not creating, you are simply existing. And existence without creation cannot produce wealth. You will work hard and stay poor because your actions, though physically productive, are spiritually empty. They carry no creative charge. They impress nothing upon the formless substance, except more of the same mediocrity you are trying to escape. This is why Wattles can say with mathematical certainty that if every act is a success, meaning every act is performed with full faith and purpose, you must be rich. Not might be rich, not probably will be rich, must be rich. Because you have established an unbroken chain of causes that can only produce wealth as their effect. You have made every moment of your day a ceremonial act of creation. You have infused every task, no matter how mundane, with the full power of your vision. You have maintained unwavering consciousness of the certain way through every action. The formless substance has no choice but to respond to this consistency of impression with consistent manifestation of wealth. The lag time may vary, but the result is inevitable. Now consider the practical implications. Starting tomorrow morning, you will not simply go through your routine. You will approach each act, making breakfast, commuting to work, sending an email, having a conversation, as an opportunity to perform that act in an efficient way. Before you act, you will pause for just a moment to connect with your vision of wealth, to feel the faith that the formless substance is responding to your thought, to set the purpose that this act is part of the creative process that is making you rich. Then you will perform the act with full presence and attention, knowing that you are not just completing a task, but performing a creative ceremony. And after the act, you will release it with gratitude, trusting that you have done your part, and the universe will do its part. This sounds simple, but it requires tremendous discipline. Your mind wants to drift into mechanical action, into unconscious habit, into worry about results. You must constantly bring yourself back to consciousness, back to faith, back to purpose. This is the work. This is what separates those who merely know the science from those who apply it. Most people read Wattles's book, nod in agreement, and then go back to performing their daily acts in exactly the same unconscious way they always have. They wonder why nothing changes. The reason is simple. They have changed their beliefs, but not their actions. They think differently, but act the same. And in the science of wealth, it is the marriage of right thinking and right action that produces results. If you truly grasp this principle, it will transform your entire experience of daily life. You will no longer feel like you are grinding through meaningless tasks, waiting for some future breakthrough. You will understand that every single act you perform is either moving you toward wealth or away from it, is either a success or a failure, depending solely on the consciousness you bring to it. And you have complete control over that consciousness. You cannot control the markets, the economy, other people's decisions, but you can control whether you perform each act with faith and purpose, and by controlling that, you control everything that matters. This is power. This is certainty. This is the mechanism that transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary results. This is the efficient way. Certainty is not found in the market, in the government, or in your job. Certainty is an internal state of scientific application. This is the synthesis of everything you have learned. Financial anxiety exists because you have been looking for certainty in places where it cannot exist. You watch the stock market, hoping it will continue rising. You follow economic news, worrying about recession. You cling to your job, fearing layoffs. And all of this is futile because none of these external factors are under your control, and none of them determine your wealth. They are symptoms, not causes. They are effects, not principles. They can change at any moment, which is why relying on them produces perpetual anxiety rather than certainty. But when you understand the science of getting rich as Wallace Wattles teaches it, you realize that certainty comes from operating according to laws that never change. The formless substance always responds to thought. The law of increase always governs prosperity. Creative action always produces better results than competitive action. Efficient acts always succeed regardless of immediate appearances. These are laws, and laws are reliable. When you base your financial life on these laws, rather than on external circumstances, you gain something infinitely more valuable than money. You gain unshakable certainty. You know, with the same confidence that you know the sun will rise tomorrow, that if you think correctly and act efficiently, wealth must manifest. Not because you hope it will, but because the laws say it must. This certainty transforms everything. When you know that wealth is not a matter of luck but a matter of law, you stop being anxious about money. You stop checking your account balance with dread. You stop worrying about the economy. You stop feeling victimized by circumstances. You become calm, centered and focused because you understand that you are operating machinery that produces predictable results. If the results are not yet visible, you do not panic. You simply check whether you are applying the laws correctly. Are you thinking from the creative plane or the competitive plane? Are you performing acts with faith and purpose or just going through the motions? Are you being an advancing personality or are you taking without giving? When you identify where you have deviated from the law, you correct your course and continue with confidence. The formula is now complete in your mind. Thought on the creative plane impresses your desire for wealth upon the formless substance, setting invisible causes in motion. Action in the efficient way, where every act is performed with full faith and purpose, bridges the gap between the mental and physical realms, allowing the wealth to flow into your hands. The law of increase ensures that as you give more in use value than you take in cash value, as you become an advancing personality who creates increase for all who touch you, the universe must increase you in return. These three elements, creative thought, efficient action, and the law of increase, form an unbreakable chain of causation. Master these three, and financial certainty is yours. But mastery requires commitment. You cannot apply these principles casually, occasionally, when you feel like it. You must make them your operating system, the default mode of your consciousness. Every thought about money must be examined. Is this a thought of creation or competition, of abundance or scarcity? Every action must be evaluated. Am I performing this with faith and purpose, or mechanically? Every interaction must be measured. Did I create increase or did I diminish this person? This constant vigilance is the price of certainty. But it is a price worth paying, because the alternative is a lifetime of anxiety, of working hard and staying poor, of watching opportunities pass by while wondering why wealth chooses others, but not you. When you act in the certain way, you become a center of distribution for the universe. Think about what this means. You are no longer an isolated individual fighting for your share of limited resources. You are a conscious partner with the creative intelligence that governs all existence. That intelligence wants to create wealth, wants to increase life, wants to expand consciousness and capacity throughout the universe. But it can only work through individuals who understand the laws and apply them consciously. When you become such an individual, when you align your thought and action with the creative principles, you become a channel through which universal abundance flows into the world. And as the channel, you receive as much as flows through you. Stop gambling with your life. Start applying the science. This is the message of empowerment that must now take root in your consciousness. For too long, you have treated wealth as a lottery, hoping your number would be called, praying for lucky breaks, envying those who seem to have advantages you lacked. But you now understand that this entire framework was false. Wealth is not random. It is not a matter of chance, of being in the right place at the right time, of knowing the right people. Wealth is the inevitable result of thinking and acting in harmony with laws that govern the universe. These laws have always existed. They were operating long before you were born, and they will continue operating long after you die. The only question is whether you will align yourself with them or continue to struggle against them. You have been given something of extraordinary value. You have been shown the mechanism by which poverty transforms into prosperity. You have been taught that there is a thinking substance from which all things are made, and that your thoughts impress themselves upon this substance and take physical form. You have been shown that competition keeps you poor, while creation makes you rich, that you must operate on the creative plane rather than the competitive plane. You have learned the law of increase, that life seeks more life, and that by becoming an advancing personality who creates increase for all, you make the universe obligated to increase you. You have been taught the efficient way, that your actions must be performed with faith and purpose to be truly successful. This is not theory. This is not philosophy. This is the practical science that Wallace Wattles distilled from years of study and application. But knowledge without application is useless. In fact, it is worse than useless because it leaves you with the guilt of knowing better, but not doing better. You cannot read this information, nod in agreement, and then return to your old patterns of thinking and acting. That would be the ultimate self-betrayal. The universe has placed this knowledge in your path for a reason. You are meant to use it. You are meant to apply it. You are meant to become one of those rare individuals who understands the laws of wealth and operates according to them consistently. The masses will continue to struggle because they do not know what you now know. But you have no excuse. You have been given the blueprint. The only question is whether you will build according to it. The transformation begins with a decision, not a wish, not a hope, not an intention to maybe start someday when conditions are better. A decision. Right now, in this moment, you must decide whether you will continue to live as you have been living, or whether you will begin applying the science of getting rich as Wattles taught it. Will you continue to think from the competitive plane, or will you shift to the creative plane? Will you continue to perform acts mechanically, or will you infuse every act with faith and purpose? Will you continue to take from others, or will you become an advancing personality who creates increase? This decision cannot be postponed. Every moment you delay is a moment of continued poverty consciousness, another impression of lack upon the formless substance, another failed act that moves you away from wealth. But understand what you are committing to. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is not a hack or a shortcut. This is a fundamental restructuring of your relationship with reality. You are learning to operate as a conscious creator rather than as a victim of circumstances. You are learning to think from cause rather than from effect. You are learning to see opportunities for value creation where others see only problems. This requires mental discipline that most people will never develop. It requires faith when appearances suggest doubt. It requires action when fear suggests paralysis. It requires generosity when scarcity suggests hoarding. In short, it requires that you become a different kind of person, a person who operates by principle rather than by emotion, by law rather than by luck. But the reward for this commitment is nothing less than financial certainty, not the hope of wealth, not the probability of comfort, certainty. When you apply these principles consistently, when you make them the operating system of your consciousness, when you refuse to deviate from the certain way, regardless of what happens around you, wealth becomes inevitable. Not because you deserve it, not because you worked hard, but because you aligned yourself with laws that cannot fail. The formless substance must respond to your thought. The law of increase must increase you when you increase others. Efficient acts must produce wealth. These are not possibilities. They are certainties as reliable as the law of gravity. And when you achieve this certainty, when you feel it settle into your bones as an unshakable knowing, anxiety dissolves. The knot in your stomach disappears. The midnight worries cease. You look at your bank account and see only temporary feedback, not permanent judgment. You observe economic chaos and remain unmoved, knowing that your prosperity comes from laws that transcend economic cycles. You encounter setbacks and view them as adjustments, not as defeats. You become unshakable because you are grounded not in circumstances, but in principles. This is freedom. This is power. This is what Wallace Wattles promised and what you can claim for yourself starting today. The choice is yours, and it is the most important choice you will ever make. Will you continue to be tossed by the winds of circumstance, hoping for lucky breaks that may never come? Or will you plant yourself firmly on the rock of principle, applying the laws that govern wealth with scientific precision? The path of certainty is open before you. The science of getting rich has been revealed. All that remains is for you to step forward and claim what is rightfully yours, not because you are special, but because you are willing to apply laws that anyone can apply, but most never will. If you accept the law of increase today, declare it below. Write, "I am an advancing personality and wealth is my science" in the comments. Let the work begin. This is not a request for engagement. This is a challenge to your commitment. Words have power, and public declaration has even greater power because it crystallizes your decision. It announces to the universe that you are no longer an observer of this science, but a practitioner of it. When you write those words in the comments, you are not simply typing a sentence. You are performing a ceremonial act that marks the boundary between your old life and your new life. You are drawing a line in the sand and declaring that on this day you ceased gambling with your financial future and began applying the exact science of wealth creation. But understand what you are declaring. "I am an advancing personality" is not a statement of aspiration. It is a statement of present identity. You are not saying you hope to become one or you are trying to become one. You are declaring that starting now, you are one. Every person you encounter from this moment forward will receive increase from knowing you. Every transaction you enter will be characterized by your commitment to give more in use value than you take in cash value. Every action you perform will be infused with the consciousness that you are a conduit through which the law of increase operates. This is not a future goal. This is a present reality that you are claiming with the authority of one who understands the law. And "Wealth is my science" declares that you are no longer treating prosperity as a matter of chance. You are treating it as a matter of law. Just as a chemist knows that combining certain elements in certain proportions will produce certain results, you now know that combining creative thought with efficient action and the law of increase will produce wealth with mathematical certainty. This is not arrogance. This is understanding. This is claiming your rightful position as a conscious creator who operates according to principles rather than hoping for luck. When you declare that wealth is your science, you are announcing that you have graduated from the school of poverty, thinking, and enrolled in the University of Prosperity Creation. But the declaration is only the beginning. After you write those words, the real work commences. You must now examine every thought you think through the lens of this new identity. When a thought of scarcity arises, you must catch it immediately and replace it with a thought of abundance. When a competitive impulse emerges, you must recognize it as a symptom of the old consciousness and consciously shift to the creative plane. When you perform an action, you must pause to ensure you are doing it with faith and purpose rather than mechanically. This constant vigilance, this moment-by-moment application of principle, is the substance of the work. There is no magic formula that will do it for you. There is no shortcut that bypasses the necessity of conscious, consistent application. You will fail. Let that be understood from the beginning. You will have moments where you slip back into competitive thinking. You will have days where you perform acts without faith or purpose. You will have interactions where you take rather than give, where you diminish rather than increase. This is inevitable because you are reprogramming patterns that have been operating for years or decades. But failure is not the problem. The problem is giving up after failure. Each time you catch yourself operating from the old consciousness, you simply acknowledge it without judgment, correct course, and continue. The path to mastery is not a straight line. It is a series of corrections, each one bringing you closer to consistent application of the law, and you do not walk this path alone. By declaring your commitment in the comments, you join a community of others who are also applying this science, who are also wrestling with the challenge of maintaining creative plane consciousness in a world that constantly pulls toward the competitive plane. These fellow travelers will inspire you when your faith wavers. Their successes will prove that the laws work. Their struggles will remind you that you are not unique in facing obstacles. And your own progress will inspire others who are just beginning. This is the power of public commitment. It creates accountability, support, and momentum that private study can never generate. The journey from poverty consciousness to prosperity consciousness is the most important journey you will ever undertake. It is more significant than any physical journey because it transforms not just your circumstances, but your essential relationship with reality. You are learning to operate as the creator you were always meant to be, to shape your life according to vision, rather than accepting whatever circumstances deliver, to partner with the infinite intelligence that governs the universe in the project of constant increase. This is not merely about becoming rich, though you will become rich. This is about becoming fully human, fully alive, fully expressed. So write the words. I am an advancing personality, and wealth is my science. Write them now before doubt creeps in, before fear suggests delay, before the old consciousness reasserts its grip. Write them as an act of faith, as a declaration of war against poverty thinking, as a covenant with yourself and the universe that you will not settle for less than financial certainty. And then begin. Apply the principles. Think from the creative plane. Act in the efficient way. Become the source of increase for all. Do this consistently, relentlessly, faithfully, and watch as the formless substance responds to your new consciousness with new circumstances, as opportunities appear that were invisible before, as resources flow to you with increasing velocity, as the mathematical certainty of your wealth manifests in physical reality. The science works. Wallace Wattles proved it. Countless others have proved it. Now it is your turn. Let the work begin.